Hey guys, Crystal Thompson here with Unity Stamp Company. Today I have a watercolor look with stamps. We're using some solid stamps to do some watercoloring. The whole thing comes together super easy, and I hope you enjoyed this full process video on how we're going to do this. And you can create even 1-layer cards, a 2-layer cards, you can die cut, but the whole thing is super easy, and I sure do hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. So for this, we are using the Small Steps Are Progress, which is part of the Unity Stamp Company February WIT kit. And I'm just using the stamp, which is available for individual purchase, just in case you didn't get a hold of that awesome card kit or you just want the stamp directly. I'm going to begin with the green grass, and this is a water-based ink, so it's going to allow us to do some watercoloring with it. I'm going to stamp that first aloe vera succulent looking plant onto our watercolor cardstock, and then I have some like light green and a turquoise blue, and I'm going to bring in my water brush. And because this is water-based ink, when you add some water to this stamp set, it actually removes some of those texture that you can see from the stamp from the watercolor paper. And so I'm going to individually add a little bit of this color. I am doing a fast forward process of this watercoloring so you can see the full thing, but I want to show you how easy it was by just adding a little bit of water to any water-based ink, how it allows you to kind of blur those lines from the stamping and give it a watercolor look. And then by adding a couple different colors, in this case a different green and a different teal, it just makes it look like you totally free-handed this, but we used some solid stamps. I'm going to come in and add a little bit of purple to the edges of our plant here, just to give it a little more of depth and a little more contrast. And we're just going to continue adding. Feel free to let it dry and then come back and add more color. Don't add too much water or you'll end up losing the entire image. Next, I'm going to use the larger of the succulents from the same stamp set, and I'm using the Pixie Dust, which is a light purple ink, also water-based. A couple examples of water-based ink would be Distress Oxides. Anything that is not dye is going to work very nicely. You're stamping up your Nouveau inks. Of course, here I'm using Catherine Pooler. So there's a variety of inks that you can use. And so as you can see, I'm coming in with my water brush and kind of just blurring some of those lines like I mentioned and giving it a nice watercolor look. Don't add too much water or you do end up losing your image. And if you find that you added too much color to one, let it dry and then we can come back in a minute and blur it out. We're going to continue adding some color. I decided to grab a little bit of a different or darker purple to add some shadow. So think about where the light's coming from. Add that shadow to the bottom of your petal or of your plant, whatever you decide to do, and then bring it up to the top. So then the bottoms will be a lot darker. I'm going to add some of this yellow just to give it some contrast. I'm going to come in with a really dark purple, adding a bit of water to it, and I'm using my acrylic block to be my palette for this color mixing if you wanted to mix some colors. We're going to continue blending some of this color. Again, don't use too much water. As you can see, I did so, and it kind of blurs it out. So I'm going to clean it up with a little bit of a paper towel and lift up that excess water and then let it dry. Next, I'm going to move on to the next stamp from the same stamp set. And my thought process here is that I will come in and add some more of this coloring as I individually go, and making sure that my stamps are completely dry before I move on to the next one. I am leaving a bit of space in between these succulents so they don't blur out. I did use a little bit more water on this last one, and this one was a bit harder because it had a lot of round areas. I added more water. And I kind of ended up blurring from one end to another, but I ended up saving it by adding some more shadowing of color. I'm going to bring in a light green. It's almost fluorescent green, and I'm just going to add a little bit more to this just because, again, like I said, it blurred out. And be sure that you leave some drying time in between, and it gives you that really cool watercolor look. I love using acrylic blocks for my palettes because it really allows you to not utilize a ton of color. You can grab it very easily. It's non-porous, so it's not going to absorb into the acrylic block. And then because it's water-based, you can just wipe it off with a damp baby white. Now for the entire thing, I'm going to bring in this baby blue, which is just a light blue ink that also is water-based. And I'm going to start drawing a nice circle. And as you can see, as I need more medium, I add more water. So the more water you use, the less dark it's going to be. And I'm already using a very light blue for this. I'm going to create a nice circular shape, kind of oval. And I'm going to bring it from the outer to the inner part of the circle. And then when I start getting really close to my watercolor, I just release the water. Like I don't add any more water to it. I would even dry out my brush just so I can continue adding color. And then I let it dry and then came back and did a second run of the darker edges. So it really makes our circle. We're going to let that dry and we're going to bring in a extra piece of black cardstock, and I'm going to stamp the sentiment onto this using a watermark embossing ink. And then we're going to cover the entire sentiment with white embossing powder. This is going to make it look super clean and really make the sentiment pop, but not remove anything from our watercolor image. I have an extra strip of black cardstock. So if you're looking for things to do with your extra strips, you can easily add them to edge cards, and it just gives them a little extra. In this case, I ended up trimming my card panel about 1/4 of an inch, just enough to give it room for that black strip. And then I have people love and appreciate you, which I thought would be a super fun sentiment. I've added a black piece of foam adhesive, and I'm going to place this right in the center. I felt that I needed to flicker some of the watercolor once the whole thing was dried up. And if you have some metallic watercolors, it'd be great to splatter on some silver, some gold, to really give this a little more shimmer. But ultimately, the watercolor images, the watercolor free-handed look that we achieved with our solid stamps is the main look here. And guys, that does it for me. Thank you so much for joining me on Color Combos with Crystal. I hope you've enjoyed this color combination that we did an array of pastels and using the awesome stamp set from the February 2021 Wood Kit. So another look if you got that kit, and if you didn't, you can go grab the stamp set, also available on the Unity Stamp Company store. I have the blog with all my list materials and written instructions. Please give the video a thumbs up, and we'll see you guys later. Have an amazing day.